It was once again a busy and challenging year for the Combat Readiness Training Center, Air Control Squadron, and Weather Flight. But before we get to that, I have a special announcement. Earlier this year, the namesake of Volk Field was inducted into the Wisconsin Air National Guard Hall of Fame. Lieutenant Jerome Volk was killed in action on November 7, 1951, while flying a mission in an F-80 Shooting Star fighter jet. He was the first Wisconsin Air National Guard pilot to die in combat in the Korean conflict. Since 1956, the airfield has been dedicated in his memory. The CRTC continues to evolve, and in December, the director of the Air National Guard approved a transformation plan for the entire enterprise. Volk Field will essentially remain unchanged from a mission perspective. However, we will be incorporating a significant amount of contract labor support into the workforce to compensate for the manpower cuts in 2013 and 2015. Our airspace modernization proposal continues to make progress, and in June, the FAA granted Volk Field a certificate of authorization to operate the MQ-1 Predator in our airspace. For the second year in a row, Volk hosted the Air National Guard Executive Safety Summit. This event, hosted by the director of the Air National Guard, showcases Volk Field to tags and wing commanders from across the 54 states and territories. In June, we sponsored the largest and most successful Northern Lightning exercise since its inception. The airfield hosted 27 F-16s and incorporated flights from the fighter wings in both Madison and Duluth. Over 250 full-scale weapons were assembled in our munitions storage area and expended on hardwood range in this offensive counter-air scenario against modern enemy air defenses. This year's Northern Lightning was also the first Air National Guard exercise to incorporate A-4 Skyhawk aggressor aircraft. In July, we hosted the annual Patriot Domestic Operations exercise. This year's scenario involved a natural disaster event with high winds and flooding. Our staff was instrumental in incorporating full-motion video from the MQ-1 Predator into this exercise. This is the first time that a Department of Defense remotely piloted vehicle was authorized to provide real-time incident awareness and assessment to command and control in a domestic operations exercise. This year's event included over 1,400 participants from over 20 states training at Volk Field and Fort McCoy, with the MQ-1 flying out of Grand Forks Air Force Base. The exercise director considered Patriot 2015 the best seen to date. The CRTC continues to offer specialized training to include the only Air Force hybrid vehicle maintenance course in the continental United States. During 2015, we also established a robust CDAR training venue to include a C-130 airframe and CH-53 helicopter. Those skills were put to use as we mounted our A-10 Warthog static display earlier this year. It was a year transition at the ACS as well. Major Mike Western took over command in May, replacing Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Iverson. He had to hit the ground running as the squadron deployed for their annual training exercise, with operators participating in Red Flag 15-2 and maintainers convoying to Camp Ripley, Minnesota. Several airmen traveled to Poland this year as part of a state partnership program agreement with Illinois. In return, the Air Control Squadron also hosted a contingent of Polish controllers in an effort to share information and knowledge. The squadron is also making preparations to transition from their vintage operations modules to a system that better simulates their deployed operations equipment. The 126 Weather Flight continues to train at various Army training centers to support their assigned combat brigade teams. This year's venues included the Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and Camp Ripley, Minnesota. At home station, they continue to support the 32nd Brigade Shadow Operations at Volk Field and Fort McCoy, an amazing group of battlefield airmen. Although I have barely scratched the surface of our activities for 2015, you can see that Volk Field is as vibrant and active as ever. On behalf of the men and women of Volk Field, I thank you for your attention.